Hi, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is Tim. This is Tim's Block Spots, and we're going to continue on with Beverly Cleary's book called The Mouse and the Motorcycle. And we left off on chapter 7, going to be reading the beginning of it. We've been reading it, we've been noticing that Ralph likes to go on the motorcycle around the hotel on the floor and get used to things. And he heard that the wind shut the door, and then he saw that somebody else understood him and like opened the door. The mom got scared because he saw the mouse, and now the mom's wanting to call the maid, and now the maid was told that she has to clean the hotel room super good and under the bed and all this. And Ralph's mom was kind of upset that he was out all night and that he brought a peanut butter and jelly sandwich to him for them to eat. And Ralph was helped by Kenneth to get out of the wastebasket, and they were talking because they understood each other, and that now that Ralph might be in danger because he's under the bed with the motorcycle, and now the maid has to clean under the bed. So let's continue on. What, chapter 7, the vacuum cleaner. Dun dun dun. It says, from his position under the bed, Ralph Ralph watched the tank of the vacuum cleaner begin dragging from the hall, listening to the clash and cling of the attachments as the maid connected a long metal tube to the nozzle at the end of the hose and fastened the carpet cleaner part to the end of the tube. He heard her humming to herself as she plugged in the deep lead machine and began to work it back and forth across the carpet. It's nice. It's nice. So she's so happy, though. Ralph bitterly as he watched the hunger machine devoted dust and lint that laid in its path. The maid's feet in white sneakers moved across the room until, without bothering to bend down to see where she was cleaning, she shoved the attachment under the bed. It slid across and closed to Ralph to be on the safe side of the pusher. The motorcycle was further from the reach of the machine, but he dared not to take his eyes off the attachment for even an instant. He shuddered as he watched it gobble a dust mouse. But even as he shuddered, he was fantastic by the power of the motor. The maid began to sing, "I'll give you a paper of pins for that the way my love begins." The attachment fell off the end of the long tube, but the maid, who thought were elsewhere, did not notice. Now Ralph could feel the machine stuck in its breath, and knew he was in danger of being sucked along with the dust mice. Recklessly, the maid pushed the open end of the tube back and forth any other way. There was no guessing which way it would go next. Ralph had to run with the motorcycle to avoid that terrified hole at the end of the tube. He ran to the right, he ran to the left, and still the maid pushed the tube around unaware that the attachment had fallen off. Suddenly, the maid threw down the tube but did not turn off the motor. The tube landed with a bump and a bounce, and before Ralph realized what was happening, the awful machine had inhaled his tail, and his feet himself began pulling by suction across the carpet. Help! He could not keep from squeaking, but no one heard him above the roar of the machine. He just imagined to catch the rear wheel of the motorcycle as he was sucking along the carpet. He hung on with all his strength. The machine, which was strong enough to suck up a mouse, was not strong enough to suck up a mouse and a motorcycle. Ralph lay there on his stomach, hanging for dear life, and filled his whiskers and fur sweeping back toward the machine. From this position on his stomach, Ralph could see the girl standing in front of the dresser. She was smiling at herself in the mirror. and arranging her hair. Dreamily, no doubt of the busboy, Ralph despaired. There was no telling how long she would stand there in that silly way, with the vacuum cleaner motor making so much noise the housekeeper was sure to think she was busy working. Ralph felt his paws beginning to slip. He did not know how much longer he could hold out against the machine. He had to think of something and think of it fast, which every bit of strength he had left in his body, he clung to the wheels of the motorcycle with his left paw while he moved his right paw up to the exhaust pipes. If he could just manage to pull himself along until he could get on the motorcycle. Bit by bit, hand over hand, Ralph dragged himself forward along the exhaust pipe. He knew he was making progress when he could see parts of his tail once more. He reached back and yanked his tail out of the tube only to have it sucked in again. Ralph was far from being out of danger. I'll give to you the keys to my heart, the maid sung to herself before the mirrors, now pulling her hair behind her ears, now pinning it on top of her head, obviously to the desirous struggle under the bed. Once Ralph's paw slipped from the exhaustion pipe, and he thought he was goner until he caught rear wheel in time to save himself. Slowly he moved forward until his entire tail was free. Things were easy when he could brace his hind foot against the spoke of the rear wheel. Slowly he rose, clinging to the machine until he was able to grasp the hand grips and threw his leg over the seat. Ralph felt constant, constantly safe, sitting on the motorcycle and very much pleased with himself for having outwit the vacuum cleaner. He was quite sure by now that the maid would never bother to look under the bed. He tried to move forward, propping the cycle with his feet, but he found the suction from the motor being behind him was too strong. This made him wonder if the motor on Kenneth's cycle was stronger than the pull of the machine behind him. The more Ralph thought about it, the more important it seemed to him to find out. No, I won't. Yes, I will, Ralph argued with himself. He had promised not to ride in the daytime. Yes, but Kenneth did not know he would have a chance to see which was stronger, the motorcycle or the vacuum cleaner. Kenneth would be interested. Would he? Wouldn't anybody riding the motorcycle? Would it not be reckless? It would be an important experiment. Motorcycle versus vacuum cleaner, which would be the winner? Ralph had to find out. The maid turned abrupt from the mirror, her feet in sneakers moving across the floor towards the electric outlet. If she disconnected the vacuum cleaner, there would be no experiment. If Ralph was going to pin one motor against the other, he had to do it now. He would never have another chance. Pew, 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 pew. Ralph picked up his tail and started the motor. Without taking time to let it warm up, he gunned it with all the breath he could inhale. The motor got off to a fast start, and then Ralph suspected, so fast that Ralph lost control. He shot out from under the bed just as the vacuum cleaner died with a long draw-out groan. Suddenly everything went white, and Ralph found himself bumping along in a strangely close, ghostly place, all white and made of cloth that seemed to be closing in on him. For every direction Ralph had ridden straight into a pillowcase. Thrown on the heap of laundry the maid had dropped on the floor, and the opening of the pillowcase has fallen shut behind him. Ralph had no idea which way was out. He dismounted from the motorcycle and beat at the clothes with his fist. But everywhere he stepped it was soft and yelping. He stamped his feet only to have the clothes give softly and silently beneath him. He began to wander through the pillowcase, tugging the motorcycle along behind him while he wondered why he had thought it so important to test the motorcycle against a vacuum cleaner. The light filtered through unknown layers of clothes, was dim, and he snuck to his knees in bed, linens wet every step. Where he came to a seam, he knew he had been wading in the wrong direction. Dart, muttered Ralph. He turned still, dragging the motorcycle, and tried to retrace his footsteps, only to find to have no idea which way he had come. There was no landmark. The clouds of cloth were white, billowy, and yelping in all directions. Double dart! He stamped his foot, only to find himself sneaking deeper into the linens. From the swish sounds he could hear outside, Ralph knew the maid must be unfolding clean sheets over the bed. He plucked on, dragging the motorcycle without directions and with very little hope. He promised to buy me a bunch of blue ribbons, sang the maid, to tie up my bonny brown hair. Down the hall a door opened. Ralph heard a muffled woof, and in a moment the click of a small dog toenails on the bare floor of the edge of the hall carpets, followed by sniffing that was dangerously close. The little terror began to bark. "I knew you were in there," he yelped. "Stick out your tongue and waggle your fingers at me. You will? You just wait." Paws began to scrape at the sheets and pillowcases as if the dog were trying to dig a hole. Ralph decided it was wiser not to talk back to the dog. He huddled, scarcely breathing, against the motorcycle. "Well, hello, you cute little thing," said the maid, revealing to Ralph that she was even slimmer than he had thought, as if there was anything cute about a terror, and could scarcely see through its own hair. The dog was on yelping, a bit self-consciously. Ralph thought now that he knew he was being admired by the maid. A man came thumping down the hall. "Stop your racket, you pesky mutt," said the owner's voice, and Ralph knew when the bark suddenly came from above him that the dog had been snatched up. "Let me down and I'll dig him out," yelped the dog as he was carried away. "Just let me down for 1 minute and I'll show you." Suddenly Ralph felt himself being tumbled about in the pillowcase. He did not even have to think what to do. He automatically grabbed for the motorcycle and held on with all his strength. Even though he had been tipped upside down with his feet in the air, Ralph knew he was being lifted up inside the bundle of bed linens and carried down the hall. He lay still in form, and front paws locked around the front wheels of the motorcycle, waiting to see what would happen next. To the maid walked a short distance to what Ralph judged to be the linens room, and there she dumped her armload of bedding before she went off to clean another room. Ralph was deep in the hamper, where no light filtered through at all. Their sheets and pillows were on their way to the laundry, and since he had no wish to be laundried any more than he had wished to be thrown out with the trash, there was only one thing for him to do: start chewing. Ralph ripped into the pillowcase with his sharp teeth, and into the time he had made a ragged hole, which he crawled through, which he tried to pull the motorcycle after him. He discovered the hole was too small. He had to stop and chew it bigger before he could pull the machine along with him. Ralph chewed through another layer of cloth and then another as he worked his way upward, each time engaging the hole for the motorcycle. His jaw began to ache, and still another layer of cloth layer ahead from time to damp back towels, which would make slower chewing. Ralph was forced to make a decision. Did he want to save his life, or did he want to be carried off to the laundry with the motorcycle? There was only one answer. He wanted to save his life. He must abandon the motorcycle. With aching jaws, Ralph chewed onward and upward and moving faster. Now that he was making mouse-sized holes instead of motorcycle-sized holes, the back towel had left an unpleasant, furry taste in his mouth. Gradually, light began to filter through the cloth until finally, when Ralph thought he could not force his jaw to close on one more mouthful of fiber, he engaged into daylight at the top of the hamper. Ooh, Ralph gasped, and his aching jaws and walking across the sheets to the edge of the hamper. He leaped lightly to the floor and hung in the back in the baseboards. Sassured down the hall to room 215, where he flattened himself and squeezed under the door safely, but exhausted and filled with remorse. At the loss of Kenneth's motorcycle, Ralph dragged himself off to the mouse store to catch up on the sleep he should have he should have had that day. Dun dun dun. End of chapter 7. Now he's in trouble. He's gonna probably tell Kenneth that he lost his motorcycle because he was swept up in the bed linens and cloth and tried to chew himself out with the motorcycle but couldn't. So he got in trouble. Now he's going to be telling Kenneth that his motorcycle is lost, but probably will receive it later. Don't know if the motorcycle is going to come back. And he almost got sucked up on the vacuum cleaner when the hose attachment was on the floor, and you're trying to figure out if the motorcycle was going to be fast enough and if the machine was going to get him, but it didn't because the machine died minutes after he was off going forward, and he landed into the piles of linens on the floor. He should went on. He should went to a different direction, but we'll find out in chapter 8 next time on this book, The Mouse and the Motorcycle by Beverly Cleary. This was part 6. Part 7's coming up soon. So hope you like this book and tell your friends about this book and share this book on your social media accounts. Tell your parents about this book because you can find this book at your local library or find this book online, or you can also watch it on YouTube on Tim's vlog spots, or you can watch a movie. Just look up The Mouse and the Motorcycle. It will give you the full movie about the mouse and the motorcycle. Thank you. And this has been a great time reading stories with Tim. And have a great day. Bye.